All the food you see here started with seeds. In this video, I'm going to show you my 5-step process to buy seeds online. I'm Zach Buckle, and in 2024, I turned just over $1,500 in seed into $85,000 of food on 1/3 of an acre in Cody, Wyoming. So I buy seeds multiple times a year. This automatically takes a ton of stress off of my shoulders because I know that I don't need to get my first seed order right and make sure I'm covered for the whole season. So it's just like when you forget to buy milk at the store. You just go back to the store and buy more milk later on in the week. It's not a big deal. If you run out of a certain amount of seed in March, you can always go back to the seed company and buy more. You can buy seed March, April, May, June, July, August. Seed companies are still selling seed all season long. And I used to be somebody that stressed about buying seed around this time of year like crazy, especially when I was just starting the farm, because I didn't know what I was doing basically yet. And some of the seeds I was buying were over $1 a piece. I remember in 2022, I was buying my first greenhouse tomato seeds, and those are over $1 a piece, and that's not including the rootstock that you have to buy to graft the plant onto. So it was like $2 or $3 per plant just in the seed, not in the soil and all that stuff. So that year I was freaking out about the seed cost from January all the way till April when the plants were going in the ground. And I was freaking out about, are these going to germinate right? Am I going to screw up getting the plant to grow and stay alive until I need to plant it in the ground? I was stressed the entire time because of the cost of that $1 seed. I kept on saying that to myself. Oh man, this is $1 seed. I'm freaking out. And at the end of the year, what ended up happening was we had a little bit of herbicide drift from neighbors damage some plants, and we had blight really bad, and we lost about 50 of those tomato plants. So we had 2 big losses right there. But when I actually counted the numbers at the end of the year, we still grew over $10,000 worth of tomatoes. So all those things that went wrong and the cost of the seed and all that stuff basically went out the window because we still grew over $10,000 worth of food. So at the end of the day, me freaking out about that $1 seed was a waste of my mental energy, because at the end of the day, the cost of the seed is really small in proportion to the value of the food that you're producing. So don't freak out about the cost of seeds, whether you have to pay shipping or not. The cost of seeds are really small in the grand scheme of things when you're growing food. So the first step I go through every time I buy seed is I like to go through what seeds I already have. And I categorize my seeds in basically 3 categories. I have one category for salad greens and herbs, one category for root crops, and then I have a large category of basically everything else, which includes tomatoes, kale, cucumbers. I put this in one large category and then have subcategories in rubber bands. So all of the kale and broccoli is in one rubber band. All the tomatoes are in one rubber band. But I put them all in this box because these only get sown a few times a year at most. Everything else gets sown much more often. And I like to go through what I have in stock to basically determine what I need to buy more of, and also to check the test dates on each packet. And the test date is when the seed company tested these particular seeds for their germination rate. And if the test date is longer than 3 years before today, I will put it in a separate box for long-term emergency seed storage. And the reason I do that is because in general, fresh seed germinates better and it grows more food. Now, I never throw away old seed. You never want to throw away old seed. But I like to store it in a separate place for emergencies. If I'm ever really short on seed and I am in a pinch and I need seed, I go there and I will use old seed, but just use more of it. So I will get a better chance of growing a nice thick crop of whatever I'm trying to grow. And so I go through that entire process, and that tells me what seeds I already have and how much I need to buy of those particular varieties. If you don't have any seed at all and you're brand new to growing food, here is some recommendations for you to start. 8 really easy beginner crops and the amounts of seed to buy, so you could start having a seed inventory right away. And in the description, I'm going to give you a free 7-step crop plan to actually grow those seeds to maturity and produce about 77 pounds of food your first year. So after you've gone through all your seeds and you've separated the ones that are too old, and you'll put them in your emergency storage box, and you have all the seeds that you know you're going to grow for the year ahead, you want to open up your seed company's website, which in this case is Johnny's Seeds, and just go through the seeds you've set aside for this year and make sure you have enough of each one of them, basically. So, for example, I have a pack of Mokum carrot seeds here that used to be 25,000 seeds, and it's August 23rd germination, so it's still good for this year, but there's not enough. So I'm going to go on to Johnny's and make sure I buy another pack of the same amount that I bought before. So in this case, it's 25,000 seeds. So we're going to make sure we buy another 25,000 seeds. And in general, I like to buy enough seed for about 18 months of planting, but I don't stress about that too much. But I try to buy a little more than I think I'm going to need for the near future, because plans always change during the middle of the season. If you have a planting that doesn't go well, it's nice to have extra seed lying around. So it's an insurance policy to have a little bit more than you think you need. So I buy about 40% more than I think I need. You're never going to regret having too much seed. It's not a big deal. And I also don't stress about the amount too much, because I know I can always buy more. Again, if this 25,000 turns out to not be enough for all the plantings that I want to do, I just buy more in March, April, May, June, whatever. If you're planting often, you're going to notice when your seed packets are low. And when they're low in the middle of the season, you just make a note of that and go ahead and buy more seed. It's not a big deal. Now, a note on seed companies. In my experience, I like growing with Johnny's for my farm because they have a lot of hybrid seeds. And I know that might be controversial, but hybrid seeds in general produce faster and healthier crops, a lot less disease pressure. This is a generality. In growing in your backyard, it really doesn't matter that much. But since I am in such an extreme climate, we have 120 days to grow. I like seeds that are going to give me the most likelihood of producing a nice crop of food. So I, in general, do grow hybrids, but you're going to have really good success at other seed companies like High Mowing Organic, Epic Gardening, True Leaf Market. In my experience, where you buy your seeds is a lot less important than how you grow them. If you want to grow food, you need to get good at all of the fundamentals of growing food and not necessarily freak out about where you're buying your seeds and all of the conversation that goes along with that. So don't freak out about where to buy seeds. But one nice thing about buying seeds online is, in general, with most seed companies, you will have the ability to have a order history. This is really handy. So in the middle of the season, I usually don't have time to go through every single seed packet that I have in my seed container. So the nice thing about Johnny's and True Leaf Market, I believe Epic Gardening as well, is they will all have an order history for you. So for example, on mine, I can go and find out exactly how many carrots I bought in my last order by just looking at my order history. And I go through this all the time. This is a really handy little trick. You just look at your order history for the last 12 months. You could do it, you know, as many years as you've been buying with that company. They have your order history. It's a really handy tool, and you can find out, you know, if you're trying to remember some variety of tomato that you grew 5 years ago, that information is going to be on their website. It's a really, really cool trick. And this helps me a lot of times when I'm trying to figure out how much seed to buy, because I forget what 25,000 carrots actually produces. I don't remember that off the top of my head all the time. So it's handy to have all that information on their website. And you just have to log in with your username and password, and all of it is here from years past. So really handy little tool. So after I've gone through all the seeds that I have on hand that are still viable and that I know I'm going to grow this year, and I make sure that I have enough seed for this year, I browse the seed company's website for new crops that I want to try growing. And this is my favorite part. I've already gotten enough seed to make sure that my business runs, and I'm growing food that my customers want to eat. And now it's time for fun. We get to research new crops to grow. And this is my favorite part about buying seeds and growing food, is trying new crops to grow, because I'm one of those kinds of people that gets really jazzed up when I see sexy photos of vegetables like these. And the excitement of trying to get that result by the end of the season gets me jazzed up for growing. So my criteria for choosing which crops to grow in my context is, first, how fast does it produce a crop? What's the days to maturity? I like to grow crops that are 70 days to maturity or less, because that allows me to grow 2 crops in my climate in general. There are some exceptions to that rule on my farm, but in general, I really like to focus on those. The second criteria is, how close can I plant that crop together to get a X amount of yield? And a lot of times I'll have to do a little bit of research on YouTube to find out what other growers are doing and what results they're getting. And it's usually not that hard. There's lots of free information on YouTube. But for example, I've done a lot of research on how to grow fennel bulbs. And there's videos on YouTube that tell you if you plant fennel bulbs 10 inches by 10 inches apart, you'll get a nice 8 to 16 ounce bulb at that spacing. That's the kind of information I'm looking for on YouTube when I'm determining whether I can grow a new crop. And so that helps me make sure that I grow big yields every time I plant. The last thing I'm looking for is it popular? Are my customers going to want to buy it and eat it? That's a really important thing that you don't always think about when you're looking at all these sexy photos. And I'm very guilty of this. I've done this before. Like, I'll look at something like celeriac, like there. And I think that's actually a really sexy vegetable. It's delicious. But will my customers buy that? Will I be able to grow 100 pounds of that celeriac and sell it? And just because it looks sexy on a photo does not mean that that selling part is going to happen. So I really want to think about that before I even buy the seed and go through all the process of growing it to maturity, because learning to grow every new crop, there is a learning curve and it takes time to get good at it. So if I'm going to invest my time and energy into a new crop, I want to make sure that my customers are going to buy it. So if you're buying a new seed for a new crop, you want to make sure it's something you want to eat. Don't just buy it just because it looks sexy on a seed catalog. It sounds like common sense, but a lot of times we don't think about that when we're looking at sexy photos like this. And so basically, once I do that and I figure out if a crop is worth doing, I will buy it, because at the end of the day, it's a couple dollars in seed to try it. So it doesn't really hurt me to buy the seed at least. I might not actually grow it this year, but I'll have it on hand if I want to try it. And I'm making decisions later on down the road. So after I've got all the seeds that I want to buy in my cart, I review the cart and make sure that I have enough seed of each variety. So just basically I'm double checking to make sure that I have the volume of seed that I'm going to want for roughly 12 to 18 months, with a little bit of extra just for insurance. So we're double checking here, looks good. And then I just check out, buy the seeds, and that's it. We're done with the seed order. So as I'm planting crops throughout the whole season, I'm constantly keeping an eye on how much seed is left in the packet. And whenever I notice a pack is running low, I add it to my seed shopping list, which is just a little thing on my phone, basically a checklist of seeds that I need to buy next time I buy seeds. And this keeps me pretty organized and makes sure that I never am completely out of seeds. When a bag is like 25% less is when I'm going to start putting that seed on my shopping list. And that keeps me ahead of the game and makes sure I always have enough. So if you're doing this at home, a really easy way to do this is just make a note in your calendar around May or June, buy fall seeds. Just to make sure that you buy seeds at least twice, and that at least reduces the pressure of you getting your first seed order right. And it also gets you to start thinking about fall gardening, which is a huge way to increase yields of food in your backyard, getting 2 crops in one season. If you could do that, it's going to make seed ordering a lot easier. I buy seeds at least 4 times a year, sometimes more, sometimes less. I don't really put a strict number on it. I just buy seeds as I need them in general. So I keep that shopping list going, and whenever the list gets pretty big and I know I'm really low on a certain seed I really need, I go ahead and buy the seeds. And I don't worry about the shipping costs too much. I used to be somebody that did, and I would always want to make sure, if I don't have $50 worth of seed, I have to pay that $6 in shipping or whatever it is. It's still a small part of the cost of growing food. Just pay the shipping if you have to. It's not a big deal. So don't stress about that either. And lastly, for storing seeds, if you start buying a lot of seeds, you're going to need a place to store them to keep them viable as long as possible. I store my seeds in a walk-in cooler, which is basically a fridge, in this blue Rubbermaid tote, basically. And I keep them in all these boxes that are categorized. But what you could do at home is just keep it in a plastic box like this that's closed. You want to make sure it has a top so it keeps the environment nice and dry, and keep it in a cool, dark, dry place. Those 3 ingredients are really important. You don't want a lot of humidity. If you're really worried about humidity, you can get these things called silicone packets. You see these in a lot of packaged clothes and stuff to keep the clothes from getting moldy. You can buy these on Amazon. That helps keep your seed dry really, really well. So I put these in all my boxes to keep them dry. And that's basically it. Hopefully that makes buying seeds a lot simpler and less stressful for you. If you're serious about growing food in your backyard, I have a complete seed to harvest garden course at the link in the description below that covers everything you need to know from no-dig garden setup, crop planning, seeding, nursery, plant spacing, harvesting, watering, and storage. Plus, you get the Baby Garden Bumper Crop Playbook, which is a complete crop plan, seed order, and planting schedule to grow $1,000 worth of food, covering 19 different crops your first year. All of that's included when you buy the course. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to learn how to turn $100 of seed into $1,100 of food, watch this video.